Welcome once again, everyone, to another Luke Fruia Motors show. Talkin Sports here at Luke Fruia Motors. I'm Jacob Young. This is Rio Sports Live Network, RSLN to be exact as well. This is going to be a great show for you all. Lots to talk about here this afternoon, I should say, because we are in the afternoon. It's 2 p.m. Central Time, and so there's a lot to get to. I talked a little bit about it before, of course, going on this show, but there's still so much, of course, to talk about. We'll talk about what's coming up here on RSLN for this weekend, and then we will, of course, potentially break down a couple of games from last night for baseball. But if anything, other than that, we will be, of course, talking about the RGV Red Crowns and teams, the players coming back. There's been about 6 players that are coming back since we last spoke. So that's exciting. We'll really break down, not necessarily break down, but we'll tell you all, everyone who is officially coming back indeed. And then we'll break down, of course, the newest ones, which is going to be very exciting. And not only that, but UTRGV, of course, they have some breaking news. We'll cover that very quickly from, of course, yesterday to today. There was a bit of news breaking out for the basketball team, so we'll make sure to cover that, as well as, of course, baseball having their game last night. That was a big one in general. Just due to the fact of course, there were two possible outcomes for them. Of course, losing or winning. A win would be huge for their RPI. We'll take a look at how they did last night, and of course, how they did in the past the past weekend series on the road in and around Nacogdoches, Texas, at Stephen F. Austin University. Because there's a lot, of course, to talk about. The Lumberjacks doing a good job there, and just UTRGV baseball needing to come back from a sweep at home from that past weekend series before that. All of that, of course, we'll be talking about it here this afternoon for sure, because, there's a lot of stuff to really cover, a lot of stuff to kind of get to in a full hour. Of course, it's 2:02 p.m. Beautiful, beautiful Wednesday afternoon, a bit overcast, a bit mostly cloudy to be exact. That's what we'll call this here today. The winds gusts could go up to 35 miles per hour on the way here, of course, driving on the freeway, getting to none other than Luke Fruia Motors in Brownsville, Texas. I felt my car being pushed around on the freeway. Of course, it was expected because of how windy today is. And just telling you all right off the bat of how windy it is by theweather.com. Right now, the high to the low, of course, 87, low 74. The wind gusts right now are about 18 miles per hour, which isn't too bad. But again, when you're driving, it's going to push your car around if you're not careful at all. And so definitely just stay safe on the roads. But that's kind of course, your updated weather for Brownsville, 86 degrees Fahrenheit. So very excited again. It looks like Saturday, Sunday, and Monday you can expect a lot of rain, even with Friday having wind gusts. So get ready for that. Really, 93% chance of rain on Sunday is expected. Saturday, 8%. I don't expect it to really rain in general on Saturday, but be prepared for any type of weather. So let's get into it. Of course, what is coming up this weekend for Rio Sports Live Network, RSLN? There's a couple of things to really take a look at. Of course, tomorrow we do have a softball game in La Feria. Brownsville Vets will be taking on La Feria High School. That's at 6:30 p.m., which that'll be pretty interesting on Thursday. As for Friday, there are 4 games at the moment. We'll see if those end up staying put. 6:30 p.m., Brownsville Vets will be hosting Los Fresnos High School. 7 p.m., Pioneer Diamondbacks hosting the McAllen Row Warriors. Again, these are all expected to happen this upcoming Friday. at Harlingen High School at 6:30 p.m. They're taking on San Benito. That should be interesting. How about 6:30 p.m.? Wesco East taking on Brownsville Rivera. Should be an interesting game as well. Then 12 p.m. and 3 p.m. on Saturday, to be exact, Harlingen South. At Harlingen South, they're taking on Los Fresnos High School. Should be interesting. And then, well, at 3 p.m., we do have a little taps action for some baseball. It's San Antonio taking on, or SACS, taking on Brownsville St. Joseph Academy. Should be interesting, like we mentioned. Those are your games for this weekend. We're going to step into the first news kind of the day, which is going to be talking about UTRGV basketball just for a split second, because it was interesting news, to say the least, because the head coach had been officially announced, which that was big. We talked about it last week that there was potentially an assistant coach that would be hired by UTRGV basketball. But here's the official announcement for UTRGV basketball and who will be the assistant coach. Of course, there's going to be a couple of assistant coaches, but for UTRGV men's basketball, this was the first one that was officially signed. Joseph Anderson, for the men's basketball assistant coach, he was hired yesterday. So very exciting for that. And then today, not too long ago, around 6 hours ago, to be exact. So this was a morning announcement, a morning breaking news. Joey Rodriguez, men's basketball assistant coach, has officially been announced for UTRGV men's basketball as well. So, of course, yeah, they've added another coach to their staff, and that should be very exciting. Both of these coaches, of course, really did not expect the Joey Rodriguez news to happen at least today, or at least around this time, for the head coach, or sorry, not the head coach, the assistant coach. And so we just want to tell you all about this assistant coach at university, or at Florida International University to be exact, at FIU, and coming down to UTRGV, which is very interesting to say the least. Joey Rodriguez, of course, the assistant coach. It's going to be exciting to see what this coaching staff can do now that it's really broadened. Considering that, well, Brandon Chambers was announced as the head coach, we talked about that. Then there were talks that someone else would be the assistant coach. That wasn't announced, as in I don't think it happened. And so, interesting, of course, to know just Joey Rodriguez, just talking a little bit about him. He helped the Panthers to 113 wins through his tenure, helping Jeremy Bullard become the winningest coach at FIU while protecting home court with 80 wins at the Ocean Bank Center. And if you have not seen Florida International University's court in general, I'd recommend looking that up because it's pretty fascinating, to say the least. The court design and all of that is pretty sick. It's pretty interesting for a Division I school like that, and a school that is in the American Conference, the American Athletic Conference, is pretty interesting. Yeah, the last season, of course, Rodriguez guided Florida International to 50 wins, including 12 home, and under his tutelage helped Corey Stevenson to Conference USA. So he actually in Conference USA. My mistake. They flipped conferences into that. So good job for, basically, of course, this is a big hire. Joey Rodriguez is now one of the assistant coaches for UTRGV men's basketball. Let's talk about, of course, the first assistant coach for UTRGV men's basketball. Beforehand, that was, of course, well, Joseph Anderson. Joseph Anderson. This is a big get in my eyes. And it's due to the fact that Yes, of course, he's a young coach. He's a young assistant coach, but he's been an associate head coach, an associate coach in general, the associate assistant coach, basically, under a lot of different coaching staffs. So, Anderson, of course, part of the staff at NC State that made the NCAA tournament after posting 21 season, including a pair of wins over number 18 Clemson and number 16 North Carolina. Anderson helped Copeland improve from 9.2 to 13.9 points per game. So basically, of course, what UTRGV, especially, this is all from their website, what they're trying to say is basically he was helping players on the team be able to get better and score more points. And that's exactly what I think UTRGV will look at with a very young team coming forward. I don't know how much UTRGV will go after the transfer portal. The transfer portal has been open now for about a week since the NCAA tournament championship game was done and dusted. That Tuesday opened up the transfer window, so it's been open for just past a week now. And I don't expect for UTRGV men's basketball necessarily to go too much after the transfer portal, but more after recruits, just due to the fact of we don't know what the budget is. That's the biggest question mark. That's the biggest thing. Because we can add this into the mix as well. At former HEB Park, also now known as Robert and Janet Vacker Stadium, UTRGV football were successful, and they're thinking that they can get more ticket sales, to say the least, which isn't a bad idea. They're going to expand their bleachers that are basically, I would say, temporary, because they're not. They're just metal bleachers in the back of the end zone, which is completely fine, especially for a new stadium. I just don't see, because it's going to take time for them to try to make it enclosed. And so you have those metal bleachers. You have a small metal bleacher basically in the back. They're expanding that section. We'll try to make it bigger, I'm certain. That's, of course, good. So where is that money coming from? Of course, it's going to be from the boosters and all of that, so that'll go towards the football side of things, is what I'm saying. So that's where some of the money's going, for sure. Not to mention with the players that they've already gotten from the transfer portal and from the recruiting. That was a big thing for UTRGV football. They got those players. They got successful players, to be exact. Although the spring game, of course, was this past Saturday. That, from talking to a couple of people, may have been a lot to desire. Meaning, we might be in for an interesting season for UTRGV football, starting with the first game of the year. Talking to some people, they're saying, don't get your hopes up for UTRGV football too much. For them winning the Southland Conference, for them winning the conference, to be exact. Possibly mid-table for their finish. 5th place, 4th place, maybe back in that 4th place. There's still a long ways to go in this offseason, but apparently the wide receiving core and the quarterbacks at the moment may be a lot to desire for. Like we mentioned, they have not played a real down of football. They played, of course, the spring football game. That's where a lot of people are talking about it. I think the team is going to be fun to watch. It's just going to be in a different way that this team will be fun to watch. You're not going to expect to see the blowouts that you saw a year prior, where it was 63-0 or anything like that. But I think you'll see wins at home. If they can defend their home field, then that's going to be successful in its own right mind. The UTSA football game will really put into perspective how the season will go, in my eyes still. Anyways, kind of got sidetracked from that, but my whole point on it is that a lot of the money is through the football team. We kind of know that coming through here. That is how it really is done at the mid-major level when you have a football program that is kind of successful, mid-major to G5. G5 is, of course, for football reference. And so if the football team is successful, if they're if they're getting return on investment, basically, they're going to put it down the line in different places, is what it looks like to me. This is a person from the outside looking in. It's really difficult for me to see how UTRGV will go after the transfer portal, and a lot of players left for the transfer portal because they were now players that UTRGV couldn't necessarily afford in a way. Or some players, of course, left with Khalil Fennell. Some players left to try and go to a Power 5, Power 4 conference. That's players like Torrey Cotton. So it's a lot of that. I'm not shocked about it, and it's okay. It's not that big of a deal when it really comes down to it. So, again, a long ways away for basketball season, but this is a big sign for UTRGV basketball, men's basketball, getting their coaching in order. And then I think we will start to see whether or not UTRGV will be going to the market to buy. And more along the lines of, okay, we sold a couple of players. Now, UTRGV, what can they do? Will they go the high school route and recruits, or will they jump up to just the transfer portal and try to do what they did a year prior? I think you can do both. I've seen it happen before, where you can do recruits and go to the transfer portal because you still need the veterans on that team. That's just the way it works. But we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out in the end. Again, head coaching is a check mark. 2 assistant head coaches are a check mark as well. Like I mentioned, you have an assistant coach that is coached in an NCAA tournament, first off, who has coached in, of course, a Power 4 conference tournament. Those are different, but again, knows how to win. He has seen the success of being able to win against non-conference foes, too. We're talking like the ACC Big 12 Challenge, the ACC SEC Challenge, things of that nature. Why is that so important? It's because you have that, now you have a person that's seen it and can really try and bring that success to UTRGV basketball. Same with the other assistant coach. This is a good team that's starting to form just on the sidelines alone. We're not even talking about a single player just yet. Again, there is excitement that can be brought for this. So stay tuned for all of that, because I'll make sure to cover all of that recruiting for you all here on RSL and on Rio Sports Live Network. So, yeah, I mean, Anderson, Paul McNeil Jr., of course, is another player that he just helped. Point is, as UTRGV are saying with their press release, this is a coach that develops players. Right off the bat there. Developing players. I have a strong feeling that's where UTRGV are going now, with just that alone. If UTRGV are trying to develop players, they're probably going through the high school ranks. They're probably going through the recruiting side for the most part. Even if they do get a couple of players that maybe played a freshman season or a sophomore season and still have their junior and senior year left and transfer, they still have a lot of growing to do. So, boom, you'll have somebody like a Joseph Anderson to really build up a team player like that. So, looking forward to it. We still got a long ways to go until November. So, But like I mentioned, we'll have a lot of that recruiting detail for you all if there's any more players or if there's any more coaches next Wednesday too, because there's not much else to really talk about for this. It's 2:20 p.m. Central Time. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we will be back talking about the RGV Red Crowns and who came back to the nest for the 2026 season, which is one day away from a month to go till their home opener. It's April 15th. I don't know what that means. Happy Jackie Robinson Day as well as tax deadline day. We'll be right back after this. Stay tuned.
100 years ago, in the heart of the Rio Grande Valley, a spark was born. From the first dreamers who stepped onto these grounds, Texas Southmost College has stood as a promise that determination can overcome any challenge. Join us as we honor our past, celebrate our present, and ignite the future together. Texas Southmost College, 100 years strong, and the next 100 begin with you.
Elevation, AT4, AT4X, Denali. Case closed. Fruia GMC, we're professional grade.
I fell on a loose towel at the grocery store, and now they're saying it's my fault. Do you think you could help?
Of course I can help. You should be focused on feeling better.
Oh, thank you, Law Champ. Hey, do you think I can get a selfie?
Of course.
This is the island where adulting takes its own vacation. South Padre is more than an island. It's the island.
Rev up your future with Texas Southmost College's Auto Body Repair Program. In just 2 semesters, you'll gain the skills to become an auto body repair specialist. Learn using industry standard iCar Academy to get you job ready fast. If you're ready to drive your career forward, TSC's Auto Body Repair Program is the place to start. Classes are filling fast, so visit tsc.edu and apply today.
No importa en cuál etapa de tu vida te encuentres, Texas Southmost College está aquí para ayudarte a progresar. Ya sea que estés empezando desde cero, cambiando de carrera o adquiriendo nuevas habilidades, TSC tiene programas accesibles diseñados para adaptarse a tus metas. Es hora de dar el siguiente paso. Piensa en grande, piensa claramente, piensa en TSC.
Back we go once again to hear from none other than Luke Fruia Motors, Luke Fruia Buick GMC and Cadillac. If you're in the market for a new car, come check it out. Once again, I'm Jacob Young. This is RSLN, Rio Sports Live Network. It's been an exciting show to really talk about. Like we mentioned before, of course, we talked a little bit about UTRGV basketball with their new head coach, and of course, the 2 assistant coaches that were officially named in the last 2 days, from Tuesday and today, Wednesday. Very big news on that. Let's go into none other than the other news. Not too far away from Brownsville, Texas, of course. There's, of course, 2 teams. Let's break down this. Once again, I'm Jacob Young, Trio Sports Live Network, just in case you missed that right off the start. But we're talking now about some soccer. The League for Clubs is starting up again this summer for at least the second year that at least this team has been a part of, which is the RGV Red Crowns. That's exciting in the time. This is a big thing, though. For context, in the offseason, there was a team that wanted to join the League for Clubs, and that was a team in Brownsville. They got the rights to get a team, and that is, I believe, Brownsville. Either way, Brownsville, Texas has a team in the League for Clubs. Another team that was FC Brownsville, they wanted to get the League for Clubs into there, and the other team in Brownsville said no. So there's 2 teams from the Valley that will be representing in the RGV for the League for Clubs. This is, of course, something to talk about. But here we go, talking more about the RGV Red Crowns. They have lists of players that they're bringing back from last season, and this is very exciting. Of course, we talked a bit about the players that have already officially signed back to the team. But let's announce it once again. The first 3 that were officially signed back on, Vicente Alvarez, Diego Torres, and Randy Galvan, were the first 3. Vicente Alvarez, of course, having history with the club, the team, and he's the first ever goal scorer for the RGV Red Crowns in history, at home and technically on the road, if I'm not mistaken. But either at home, he scored the first match goal as the RGV Red Crowns won their first match at home at Harlingen Field. Very exciting once again. It was the ex-home of the RGV Red Crowns. There's very cool stuff from Jamal Koyefaya to be expected for the RGV Red Crowns. I cannot wait to bring you all of that, of course, news when it is publicly released, which will be very exciting once again because there's cool plans. I think most of the stuff is going to officially come out. So, very soon. Anyways, the second 3 that were officially announced to be returning. Again, we talked about these 3 players last week. Was Juan David Valencia, Juan Carlos Alvarez Jr., a.k.a. J.C. Alvarez Jr., and then Diego Rivera. So those were the 3, of course. The 6, I should say, returning from last year that were announced last week, officially April 7th and April 3rd. So let's go back to the next returners. This was 2 days ago officially, so this was actually Monday that it was released to have happen. Back to the nest, go Emmanuel Alvarez, Isaid Gomez, and Zaid Sanchez. Very exciting for all 3 of these players to be returning. Emmanuel Alvarez, out of McAllen, Texas, UTRGV, fullback. Again, having those minutes with UTRGV, then getting to play last year. He had some minutes for this team. Feel like he was a good player for this side to really help out when needed. And so Alvarez, of course, coming back onto the team was a big sign in my eyes. Isaid Gomez, this man, he showed up a lot last year as well. Fullback out of Mission, Texas. Again, most of these players getting to build off of their success that they had a year ago, which is key. And then Zaid Sanchez. Center back out of Mission, Texas, plays for UTSA. So, University of Texas, San Antonio. Again, that's what we're talking about. D1 athletes getting to play college soccer, which is a big thing in general. Of course, there's a lot of talk that this is the only sport in the U.S. that, with NCAA regulations and all of that, completely different than if they were to go and try to play for a U23 side or basically trying to go pro. We've talked about it before, but I'll break it down for you all. There's a pyramid in U.S. soccer, and it gets complicated very quickly the more that you look at it. It's more complex than the English soccer pyramid, to be exact, which is wild to say because there's no promotion, there's no relegation, and so that becomes a little bit of a problem. The NCAA, of course, it's fine. But just the style of play is completely different than once you go to that semi-pro ranks, once you go, of course, to that official big contract of going to play for a U23 team. The style of play is different. That's the biggest thing. But again, these players, they have that opportunity. They have the skill set already brought to them and being pushed out forward. It gives them an opportunity. I'll say it again. Zaid Sanchez, he's going to be a big key this season as well in that center back position when the RTV Red Crowns need him. Same with the fullback of Isai Gomez. We still have not seen a lot of the players coming back, to be fair, and we haven't seen any new signings just yet. Like I mentioned, expect there to be new signings. Expect there to be players coming back, even more players coming back, which is a big deal in my eyes. And then, of course, today, earlier today, this was a big thing 4 hours ago. More returning athletes for the RGV Red Crowns. You have Andres Rivas, you have Omar Galan, and you have Joaquin Rosales, a player that, let me be very clear, on the broadcast last year, that was the toughest name for me to say on air. Joaquin Gonzalez, Joaquin Rosales, I'm pretty sure I'm still butchering his first name. But anyways, he's back. Omar Galan and Andres Rivas. Three big players that, again, we go back to it. Most of these players not only played for teams like Idea Toros, but also got to play college soccer. And so that was a big deal. Center defensive midfielder out of Lafayette, Texas, and the University of Albany was Omar Galan. That's a pretty thing. That's a pretty crazy thing to think about. University of Albany. And I've said this before on this show exactly. When players are able to get offers from not only D1 teams in the NCAA for soccer alone, but when they're able to get teams that are up north, you're a pretty great soccer player. And that's the truth to me. I go back to it. Around that area, you have teams that have, for the most part, won the national championship in NCAA soccer. You have teams like Vermont. You have teams like Syracuse. You have teams like Wake Forest. Just up there alone, of course, around there, North Carolina, the big teams in men's soccer too. That's where the competition is. So Omar Galan with that opportunity to show once again why he's on this team is even better. Joaquin Rosales. Central defensive midfielder out of McAllen, Texas, played for Blinn College. I believe that'll be his second year this year. And, of course, I remember it. This past season was solid for Blinn College. The only difference is, of course, it's at a JUCO school. But again, he had an offer and chose the better school in my eyes than playing for a team like Texas Southmost College. And the reason, of course, being because Blinn College are established. That's the reason. They're established. They know what they're doing. They know how to manage everything and have national championships and have been to the tournaments time and time again and have advanced through multiple rounds to prove it. And the way that they do their recruiting and everything is insane, and it's perfect. So, let me go back to it. Rosales is only going to improve this season. And look for him to possibly transfer. Not, obviously, this year he'll most likely play through with Blinn College, but the next year. Expect him to be able to transfer to a school, possibly even in the West Coast. And that's a crazy thing to think about. That he will be able to play in that next step, that next level. Because, again, this season, a lot of these players will break out this season because they just have not only a year under their belt, but on top of having 1 year under their belt, it's going to be year number 2, just with the RGV Red Crowns alone. And with the players that already know each other. Think about the chemistry on the field. This, to me, has success written all over it. But these players, they have to remember, these aren't going to be easy teams just to roll over. So, very exciting. I don't know how it's all going to go, but we'll wait and see. So very exciting once again. We'll take a quick break. I'm Jacob Young. This is Real Sports Live Network. Stay tuned.
Kenny Perez came from a small town in Texas. At Kenny Perez Law, we won't stop fighting until our clients get what's rightfully theirs. We're right by your side, no matter what. Call Kenny Perez Injury Lawyers today, 956-999-1111.
Permatemp Personnel Services has been servicing local businesses for the past 29 years.
Leave the hiring to us. Let us become your personal hiring guru.
We have a network of skilled employees to fit your needs.
Your success is our strategy.
Don't hesitate, call us now.
The standard of excellence has always been Cadillac, so be iconic and drive one. Fruia Cadillac, Brownsville, Texas.
It means a lot to me. TSC has changed me to make me realize that I can accomplish things. Just don't give up. I've come a long way from where I was to what I am now, and there's no limit to where I'm going.
Turn your passion into a powerful career at Texas Southmost College. Our automotive technology program will train you in everything from maintenance to full vehicle systems repair. Earn a certificate or associate degree and get certified to work as a C maintenance or B-level technician. You'll be guided by seasoned instructors who have decades of real-world automotive experience, helping you get ready to roll into the industry. So take the wheel and apply today at tsc.edu.
If you've been in a car crash, call Kenny. We're available to take your call 24/7, and we don't charge a fee unless we win your case. When you're in a car crash, call Kenny. Call 999-1111 now for a free consultation.
At Tortilleria Ibañez, flavor starts fresh every day. Crispy flautas, homemade tamales, and our signature chicken salad, all made for you. Tortilleria Ibañez, tradition on every plate.
Back live once again here just to officially finish off, of course, talking about the RGV Red Crowns soccer. All those players that have been announced. More than excited about this season. Could not tell you how excited I am to not only be on the call, but just have the core group of players back, and it's not even remotely close to a full roster, a full lineup just yet. Because yes, JC Alvarez is back, but we're going to wait for, of course, a couple of other players. That's going to be interesting to say the least. And who knows? Who this team have up their sleeve to sign, whether or not they're new, whether or not they're returners or anything of that sort. It's going to be interesting, going to be key. Because remember, we haven't really heard anything from Zach Hargreaves. We haven't really heard anything from Jack Creighton. And that will be exciting to see if both of those players come back. If they don't, no worries, no big deal there. Because they're out being successful at other clubs, is what we're saying, of course. So, we'll wait on that. Now, moving on. Talking about UTRGV baseball, it's something that, of course, we've liked to talk about. If y'all heard that, well, I mean, it's an exciting Champions League match. It's still 0-0 for Arsenal and none other than the other clubs they're playing against in the Champions League. Point is, focusing on UTRGV baseball, this is an exciting thing, to say the least. Well, kind of exciting. Let's start off with, of course, their series against none other than Stephen F. Austin University. Stephen F. Austin, of course, came into this one. The Lumberjacks looking good. UTRGV baseball struggling in general. And this was the truth about UTRGV baseball and all of that. So in that the first game on Friday, to be exact, it was interesting. UTRGV could not get their bats swinging. Really struggled against Stephen F. Austin. And again, the Lumberjacks took care of business. It was at home. It was at the Lumberjacks. It was at their place, to be exact. We go back to the series. And that was something to say much of. Because again, UTRGV, they ended up losing 7-2, so they scored 2 runs in that game, unfortunately. And then their next game for UTRGV baseball, it was a good start. Midway through the first inning, UTRGV were on top 2-0. Into the first inning, fully still 2-0. Into the second, 2-0. But UTRGV just could not get their bats going. Once again, midway through the third, still up 2-0. Midway through the fourth, still up 2-0. Into the fourth, this is where it took a turn for the worst. UTRGV's bats just could not get going, like I mentioned, after those 2 runs. And defense could not hold off the charging Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks. 4 runs scored by Stephen F. Austin. And it was 4-2, and UTRGV had to climb back from behind. Midway through the fifth, it stayed the same. Midway into the fifth, it stayed the same. UTRGV got a run back. It was in the top of the sixth, 4-3. Then midway through the sixth, still 4-3. Into the sixth, Stephen F. Austin get their insurance run. Makes it 5-3. This is, of course, in Game 2. UTRGV already down 1 game, and this was for the series, basically. If Stephen F. Austin took the win, they would win at least 2 out of 3. Still 5-3 at the end of 7. Midway through the 8th, still 5-3. Into the 8th, 5-3. In your final, 5-3. It's unfortunate for that series the way that it ended, because you could tell just a bit. Something changed on that Saturday. The Friday game was horrible for UTRGV in general. We're not going to sugarcoat that. Giving up as many runs as they did, not being able to come back into it. But only allowing 5 runs for UTRGV in that. The second game was okay. If only they were able to score more runs in game number 2 at Stephen F. Austin. But UTRGV had one more try to not get swept for the second week in a row after being swept against none other than Northwestern State that weekend prior to, of course, this series. This is where things were exciting. Just because you could tell UTRGV were a little bit, or changed just a bit. UTRGV's game started at 12 noon. UTRGV led 2-1 early on in the game. UTRGV in the top of the second added to their lead 3-1. Then in the midway through the second, tagged on an extra run is what I'm trying to say, 4-1. That was midway through the second. Into the second, still 4-1. Into the third, still 4-1. Midway into the third, still 4-1 to be exact. Top of the fourth, UTRGV add another run to make it 5-1. And again, their bats are now starting to go. Most runs that they had scored in a while. 5-2 at the end of inning number 4. Then all of a sudden, 7-2. UTRGV get on the board. This was great for UTRGV baseball. Again, the matinee game, the Sunday game, the series is done and dusted, but UTRGV, do they have a chance to get the victory? It was looking very promising, and again, into the 6th. Stephen F. Austin grab 1 run back. No big deal for the Vaqueros because of the fact they came back and tacked on 2 more in the top of the 8th. It was now 9-3 UTRGV. Midway through the 8th, it was still 9-3. End of the 8th, 9-3. Midway through the 9th, UTRGV held on with a 9-3 victory, or with a 9-3 lead. And that was your final score like I said, they held on for that 9-3 win, only allowing 3 runs against Stephen F. Austin, a team that was trying to sweep them and just could not get it done. Again, something unlocked, like I mentioned, that Saturday, from that Saturday game. It's unfortunate with the loss, of course, on that Saturday game. But like I said, they scored 5 runs and then scoring 9 runs after a really unfortunate showing on the opening game of the series that Friday. You go on to the you go on to the Tuesday game, which actually happened for UTRGV. They had to go to Sam Houston State University to play against Sam Houston State and the Bearcats. So that was going to be interesting. And that was at 6 p.m. That was last night's game. What could UTRGV do? This was a big game for them due to the fact of, there's a chance to bump up their RPI, get back into the rhythm of winning. Because remember, they had one win. They had a game that was a victory. Here's game number 2. Here's an opportunity for UTRGV to go on a win streak. It's going to be tough, but there is a chance. Top of the first, UTRGV with the second pitch of the game, home run. Conference USA foe of, actually, Sam Houston State University. So, again, with all the conference realignments, sometimes you forget that some teams moved out of a certain conference and moved into, Conference USA. It seems to be pretty big. That's exactly what Sam Houston State did, and they moved into that. So, UTRGV early on in the game, 1-0 back-to-back home runs, 2-0 in the top of the first. Midway through the first, it's 2-0 UTRGV over Sam Houston. Then Sam Houston at the end of 1 ties it up at 2. That's where things, of course, yes, even myself kind of hit the panic button and said, here we go again. And it's easy to fall into that trap just due to the fact of, we've seen this before. UTRGV lead early, but then give away the lead and can't score any runs moving forward. Because that's been time and time again this season. That's the honest truth. Here's where it changes. UTRGV hits 3 home runs. They're up 3-2 in a game. In of 2, it's 3-3. Sam Houston gets the tying run. Midway through the third, it's 3-3. Into the third, still 3-3. Top of the fourth, UTRGV get the 4th hit, or get the 4th run to be exact, to lead Sam Houston 4-3. And that was by Andy Chapa. That was in the top of the 4th inning. Into 4, it's still 4-3. Then on to the middle of the 5th, still 4-3, UTRGV led. And then Sam Houston grabbed 2 in the end of the 5th inning. 5-4. This is going to be a common score because that's where it stayed for a while. Both teams, of course, could not score any more runs for a while. Into 7, it was still that time. UTRGV, this is where things get interesting with this team. We have not necessarily seen the clutch factor of this team. We have not necessarily seen where this team can really battle back and get opportunities. This is where the key thing was. Andrew Taylor, in the top of the 9th, ties up the game with a home run. The 4th home run of the evening for UTRGV baseball. And it was time. That went into the top of the 10th. This is where things were interesting. UTRGV load up the bases. This is kind of a common theme for UTRGV baseball, though. They can load up the bases pretty well, in my eyes. How many times I've seen them load up the bases has been key. This is a key thing, though, as well. Can they score off of loading up the bases? They have not been very successful off of that. This time, UTRGV and Andy Chapa with an RBI, getting 2 runs to score, making it 7-5 was the score. UTRGV get one more run to make it 8-5 in the top of the 10th and hang on to win the in-10 on the road. One of their first Tuesday wins against a non-conference foe that can boost their RPI if they get the victory. Massive victory in general with confidence booster. Again, they're on a winning streak now. UTRGV baseball are on a winning streak. This is massive for this team. And we go into it because what happens Tuesday? What is happening Tuesday? Or, sorry, what is happening this upcoming Friday and Saturday and potentially Sunday if the rain somehow, some way holds off? Friday, at least, UTRGV have a prime time spot on ESPNU at home, facing off against Southeastern Louisiana University. UTRGV baseball have a chance to not necessarily make history, but really to get back on track. This is a key series this weekend. It's against Southeastern Louisiana. They're not a bad team at all. And with the way that UTRGV baseball kind of fought back against Sam Houston State, the way that they fought back against, for the final game at least, against Stephen F. Austin, take that into the first game of the series in front of a packed house that will probably be over 6,000 if I had to guess. If it's not, then there's something wrong with the way that it has been, because at this point now it's worth the support to really come through due to the fact of they are on a winning streak. They did beat a Tuesday team. They did beat a team, at least Stephen F. Austin won for one of those games during the series. The key will be UTRGV baseball and the team have to show up at home. The pressure shouldn't be there because they're in front of their home team. They're in front of their home crowd, I'm saying. This is where this team should be unstoppable and not on the road. That's my take. And in my eyes, they have every chance to really turn the tide on this season late. They have plenty of games left. A series victory here would be big, would be massive. A sweep would be even better. Now, there is a chance, there is a high probability chance that Sunday's game will not take place. If UTRGV baseball and Southeastern Louisiana baseball think about it, they may play a doubleheader on Saturday. An early game Saturday and a late game Saturday. So that the weather will be fine for at least they got the series through, and so that Southeastern Louisiana can travel safely home as well. That's just me. But again, a massive series this weekend and Friday again. UTRGV baseball at home on ESPNU, nationally televised game. If you can make it, I definitely say get your ticket now and go to the game. It's going to be definitely worth a watch. And then same goes for, if you can't make it, tune in on ESPNU. Because this is going to be something. A Southland Conference matchup. Very, very exciting, like I mentioned. It feels like the tide is slowly but surely turning for UTRGV baseball. Hopefully I won't be back here next week talking about an unfortunate events for UTRGV baseball, but let's put it through. It's a long season. Like I said, hopefully UTRGV can get the job done because this team deserves to go back to hosting the Southland Conference tournament, at least part of it, once again. And that's all you have to do is finish second in conference. And this team, I think, is good enough to do that. They just all have to show up, play baseball that they know, play the style of baseball that they know they can. going to do it for me here at Luke Fruia Buick GMC and Cadillac. Thank you all so very much for watching. What a fun show. We'll have more, of course, to talk about in a week's time. I've been Jacob Young. This has been a Real Sports Live presentation. And until next